So welcome to the After Effects um, workspace, the After Effects interface. We're looking at the default layout. There are different workspace options you can choose from. There's default, there's standard layout, so the panels are a little bit different in the standard versus the default. Um, you could be on either for this class. Uh, Basically the main layout that we want is we want to have a project panel here. That's where we will have any assets come in to be listed in the project panel. When you import media, it will be listed as assets in the project panel. We'll also need to be creating compositions which get listed in the project panel. In order to create a project, you need a composition in After Effects, and a composition will be displayed in this area. This composition panel right here is where you will see your work. So whatever you create, you're gonna see the display of it in the composition panel, and you're gonna be making all of your editing decisions and animation decisions down here in the, what does this look like it is going to be? This is a timeline. Well, so our seasoned experts know this is a timeline. Then we have some additional panels over here where you can find out info about your files, or you can monitor your audio levels here. These panels are tabbed together, so when I click on one, the name of this panel, it's popping to the front, it's underlined, so the audio panel's in front, or click on info's in front. Preview panel lets you preview what's on your timeline, play it forward, that kind of thing. Effects and presets we'll get into later. So additional panels, like for when we get into special effects, that's a nice panel to search for effects. If I go back to default, then we have a different sort of layout with these. It gives you more room for more panels, and instead of panels being tabbed on top of each other, now there's one above the other in a kind of a list where you can click on one and it expands. You click on info, it expands, click again and it hides. Audio panel preview. So it's just a preference whether you like the standard layout or the default layout. There are other options for your workspace. If you go to Window, Workspaces, all kinds of preset workspaces here, depending on what type of work you're going to be doing. Like if you do painting, for example, in After Effects, you can click Paint, and then you'll have a layout that's good for paint with the paint options here. And if you do, let's see, if I go to Window, Workspaces, and I choose text, if you do want to work with text more, then you have your character panel and your paragraph panel out. So they have presets depending on what you're doing. But I'd like you guys to just get acclimated with the workspace. But actually, you know what? We'll do that a little bit later. Let's just go back to, let's say we like standard. Let's click on standard. And let's start a composition, because that's usually the first thing that you're going to do when you start a project in After Effects. You need a composition, and you have to have an idea about the destination for your project right from the get-go. That's ideal to know. Are you going to be displaying this work on television? Is this going to be exclusively for mobile devices? Is this going to be an animation or video that's just going to exist on the web? Maybe your goal is just to put it on YouTube or Vimeo. So you want to think ahead of time whenever you start a new composition, where is the destination, so that you make the right choices for your settings. So when you go to composition, this is where you go to start a new composition. You can hit Command N or just click New Composition, and this is where you choose your settings on the Basic tab. So I made it easy for you because in the assignment I give you specific instructions on what settings to use. So the settings that I instruct you here in the assignment is to choose HDTV settings. So those settings will work on a standard high definition television display. So you can have your work be on television, broadcast television. It can also exist nicely on YouTube with these settings, or Vimeo, or so you have, this is a flexible setting that will work in the United States. That's another thing that you have to think about is your work going to show exclusively in the United States? Because if it is, there are specific settings and standards based on the technology that's built to use in the United States. You have to set up your settings for that technology, versus if you're going outside of the United States, like in Europe or certain places in Asia, where they use a different television standard, a different frame rate, then you have to choose settings according to those standards. Like there's the PAL, they call it PAL. So if you look in After Effects, we have, by default, they give you the setting that I ask you in the assignment, the HDTV setting. So that works for the United States. But notice there are other settings here. There are PAL settings. There are, widescreen, like the shape of the pixels matters. There's HDV 1080 is refers to the frame size. So we have, that's the frame height, right? 1080. That's the height in pixels. So the standard high definition frame size is measured in pixels. The width is 1920 pixels wide by 1080 pixels high. Then there's a certain pixel aspect ratio. What does pixel aspect ratio mean? Anyone know? I have definitions in your AE lesson 1 and 2 for digital video basics. So the first principle is consider the final destination. When you're setting up your video, you need to know, what country are you planning to show your video in? You might need to make a version for different parts of the world and use settings that are PAL, for example. The standard for the United States is called, by this acronym usually, NTSC. So that refers to video that's under settings that work with technology in the United States. PAL is other parts of the world. Think about if you want to make your video exist only on the web or on a desktop computer or specific mobile devices. Then I have all of these. If those settings are confusing and overwhelming, I have a list of terms here you can look over, so you know about the dimensions of the frame size. Back when I was in college, we didn't have high definition, so the size of our frames, standard video, was 720 by 480 pixels. That would be a much smaller size video. That would be if you choose standard NTSC. Like if I chose NTSC DV, there I have the digital video. Back when I was in college, it was 720 by 480, and these were the settings. So whatever preset you choose, it's going to give you settings, and then if you make changes here, it's gonna give you you're gonna be customizing that preset. But I'm gonna go back to the one that I suggested for the assignment, which was, you guys remember it? It was the HD TV 1080, not 25, right? So these are different frame rates. What's 24? Does anyone know what 24 frame rate is good for?
Cinema.
For film, yeah, because film, is shot at a 24 frame rate. So if you want to transfer your animation to film, you would choose 24. If you're going to PAL for other parts of the world, for Europe, 25 is their frame rate. Our frame rate in the United States is a little odd, right? 29.97. Isn't that strange? Isn't that like, how can you have a frame rate that's 29.97? Like, imagine video, how it works. There's a certain number of frames per second, right? So how can it be this odd number? Anyone know the backstory for that, of how we have that number? Back in the back in the day when it was just black and white, does anyone know what the frame rate for video was when we just had black and white television? It was perfect 30 frames per second. That's what video ran at. And then with the invention of colored television, then they could either have changed the technology and went to PAL, and just redesign the whole technology, or they could have just made an adjustment, which what they did was the kind of cheaper route, just make an adjustment to fit the color in with the, now they didn't have enough bandwidth for the color. So what they do now is they alternate the frame rate. So every so many seconds, it's 28 frames per second, and then it goes back to 30. So that's why we have this strange number here, which makes our lives as video makers complicated, but that's what we got to deal with. So but it's okay. It all works out. So that's the one that's for our United States technology. If you want your video to play nicely on United States television, then you choose that, 29.97. Okay, so then all these settings work with that preset. So you don't want to make changes here unless you're, planning to not use the television. You can change the frame rate if you're just making an animation for the web. You can change the frame rate. You're not locked into that, but I'm going to leave that. Resolution full, that's good. That's what we want. Start time code. What's time code? Anyone hear the term time code before? That's, again, it should be a on your digital video basics. What was that?
Use that to sync with the...
Yeah, that can come in handy for syncing. It's good to understand time code in general. Let me see. Maybe I don't have anything on time here. Shame on me. I guess it's in a different handout. But let's just talk about it real quick. We'll get into it in more detail later. So time code. So this is the count of your video. Every frame has its own kind of address, and it's counted up from beginning. Everything's 0, and then as you move along your timeline, move forward, you're counting the end numbers. Those count up frames per second. The next numbers would be seconds. What would be the next digits over? Minutes, and then hours. Yes. And so that's the format for time code, all these digits with these. Sometimes you'll see a colon in between, sometimes semicolons. It depends on the type of video. We'll talk about that later. Okay, so the duration is set. Can anyone tell me what the duration of this project is set for? Very good, from the expert over there. She knows that this, because the 30 is the seconds, right? Remember, frames, seconds, minutes, hours. So that's saying the duration of this video would be 30 seconds. Now you can change your duration if you wanted it to be a different length of time for the video that you make. Maybe you want 10 seconds. So a way to change the duration is you can double click on the number, and you don't have to type in all the punctuation. You could just type 10 and then 00, and it just holds the space. And see, it shows you that it's giving you the time code format there. That's 10 seconds. If I press tab, it'll apply that and give me the time code. Or I can double click on the number again. Maybe I want 25. So let's do 25. 25 and then 00, right? And then press tab key to apply that. So now I have a duration of 25 seconds. Or how about if I wanted 1 minute and 25 seconds? What do you think I'm going to type then? 1:25:00, right? There I have it. How about we go back to 30? 30:00, right? So the 00 just a placeholder for what? What's this? Counting up frames. Very good. So you can press tab or click outside. Okay, one other thing you can do to customize this is you can change the color of the background. Right now it's black. So if you click on that little color swatch, you can choose a color. Any color is fine. So this slider will let you choose color for background. This little circle will let you choose the value of that color. So this slider is letting you choose a hue along a spectrum. And this circle you drag around to make the color light, darken it. You see this is the new color here that I'm choosing. So if I want it to be like this blue color, this blue-green color, you can choose whatever color you feel for today. Anything. And then say okay.
But the duration, does that mean you're making it that long?
Yeah, so that
Okay,
what it does is it gives you that length in your timeline. And you can, that's something you can change later if you change your mind and you say, oh, I want it to be a little longer or a little shorter. And we'll talk about how to change the length later. One other thing I forgot, at the top, composition name, and you can change the composition name later too, but I'm going to go ahead and name it now. So on the assignment, shape animation assignment, I said to create a new composition using this setting and name it again the same thing as the project, your last name followed by your first initial dash shape animation. So let's just name it the same thing. So last name, first initial dash shape animation, and then say okay there. And now save this, Command S to save or file save, so that you will have this to work on. And then I know we're running out of time, so let's I want to show you a few examples of what the final result of this is going to be. You're going to get to use these tools right here, the shape tools here. So there's the, if you see, sorry, let me go back to the selection tool. That's what you're on normally, selection tool. Here's your toolbar. And then you can go to the rectangle tool and click and hold on it. And you can see a bunch of different shapes that you will have access to add. So let's say you choose the star. Then all you have to do then is put your cursor over your composition. You get like a little crosshairs and you can click and drag out different stars. Maybe I want just 3 stars like that. And notice I've got a fill and a stroke. That's what's giving my shapes color. So I can click on the fill option here, the little swatch, to change the color if I want a different color for my stars. Maybe I want this green color. Okay, that just did that one. If I go and take my selection tool, because now what it's given me is a shape layer, and I have 3 different stars. If I select individual ones, I think I can select my individual stars and change their color individually. But if I select the top level and then let's see, go back to the star, and then now I have a question mark because I've got multiple colors, and then choose a color. That will make all of them the same color. And we'll get into more, I'll get into more detail for the videos. You can also change the stroke. There's the stroke weight. See, the stroke is white right now. I can adjust the stroke thicker. You can also click on fill here or stroke here and change your options. So if you click on fill, the word fill, you get fill options. So right now it's a solid color. It's set to solid. You could also turn off the fill so that there's just emptiness. There's no fill color. It's just the stroke now, or solid, Or if I want a gradient, it gives me a gradient where color blends into color, but it's black and white, so I'd have to change the gradient. So now there's linear gradient where color is blending in a straight line, radial gradient where it's radiating in a circular shape. There's other options here on opacity options, but I'm just going to say okay. Now if I go back to the fill swatch, now I have a gradient editor. So I can change the colors of my gradient by clicking on a color stop here. I can choose a color for that color stop. Click on a color stop, click on a color stop, then choose a color. If I want a light green there, and I can add colors if I want to add a blue, but I know that we're getting close to the end. Okay, so I'm going to just save that for now, file save. I'm going to quit After Effects, and I just want to show you what you guys have to look forward to on the shape animation and in what you're going to learn upcoming skills. I know there's only 1 minute left, but I just want to oh, you gotta go. Okay.
Yeah, my bell rings. 4 minutes.
Okay. Okay, sorry. Thank you, Shelly. Okay, so just want to show you something real quick. Assignment. Examples, just some examples of what you can do with this shape animation project. You're going to get to add sound. And I'm going to kind of scrub through that one and go to something maybe way more. This one is really, she had some previous talent or experience.
Is that one the motion one?
This one, I think she did this for the shape animation.
So we can add the text on the shape animation?
Yeah, you can add text if you know
I thought we
text.
was doing that for the motion graphic.
Well, you can always add text if you know since you know text, you can always add text. But for those of you who don't know text, you don't have to add text at this point. But you can see different approaches. So just make sure that you did everybody quit After Effects? I think I forgot to show you how to quit. Save your work, quit After Effects, and close your. So when you're in After Effects, I close this. Go to After Effects, quit After Effects. After you save your work, go to After Effects, quit After Effects. And then before leaving, go to the Apple and then go to shutdown. And please scan out before leaving.
Oh, you gotta scan it out too?
Yeah.